everybody, welcome to the podcast, our first live episode here on YouTube.
Hey, welcome in.
Just to clarify a couple things, my shirt is green screened into the background because I forgot that I had the blue filter on and it's too late to change it now. Anyways, we're here, YouTube, first night. I was wrong on a couple things, and so I'll go ahead and just clear this up just for the audio side, like people who are listening on SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, and tuned in. We actually found out that there is a live chat. The super chat that I was worried about is actually a feature for people who get 1,000 subscribers, but the only difference between super chat and live chat is that with super chat, viewers can buy comments to have basically sent directly to the streamer so it can be seen first.
They basically are like colored alerts, basically.
Pretty much.
That alert the broadcaster.
Yeah.
So they see your chat. So
yeah. And I also want to apologize because I didn't really notify a lot of our viewers that we're going to be on YouTube, except for last minute, kind of last night and this morning. I posted something on the Twitch. I posted a new video banner that says that we stream live on YouTube, but we post the episode still on Twitch and everywhere else. So I'm just going to give YouTube a tryout, see if we can get some more traction with viewers and subscribers and stuff like that. So that being said, today we're going to be talking about gender fluidity.
Yes.
So I mentioned that I'm teaching myself Spanish with the Duolingo.
You did not mention that. We're both learning Spanish with Duolingo. We're not sponsored by them, but I really enjoy their app.
It is pretty fun, like in the morning when you're...
It's basically they gamify the process of learning a new language, whatever language you may choose in their library. We happen to be choosing Spanish because I don't remember the exact year, but I think it was like by 2040 or 2050 that there's actually going to be more Spanish speakers in the United States than English speakers.
I think they said by 2040 or 2030 maybe.
Could be, but it's not that long. And
plus I just like talking Spanish with you.
Plus, I think that as Americans, we're kind of known for being ignorant, where most countries, when their kids complete, I think, high school, I want to say, they're typically fluent in at least 2 to 3 languages, if not more. So I feel like I don't want to be that... I know some Spanish already from school, but I would like to brush up on that and become fluent.
Well, obviously, I have my own podcast, but I like to listen to other podcasts, and I know, and especially the
other podcasts.
Yes, I've been cheating on our podcast, especially the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, and he has a lot of experts come on, and a lot of them say the same thing. Especially, he had David Lee Roth on a couple days ago, maybe last week, and David Lee Roth has taught himself many different languages, and he's taught himself many different art forms, and he says that if you just want to expand your intelligence and knowledge, you need to learn a couple more languages. And so I thought Spanish, it's going to be useful just for where I live, or where I'm planning to live. Like, I'm planning on moving to the West. There's a lot of Spanish speakers over there. And
there's a lot of Spanish speakers anywhere anymore, so...
And plus, I love the movie Coco, and so I want to know what they're saying. That being said, we're talking about gender fluidity.
Yes.
It's a topic, like I said before, I cheat on my own podcast and listen to Joe Rogan's Experience, and he had... it was the CEO of Twitter and like somebody from the legal team and a journalist, and that was a whole thing. But they kind of got into like a side conversation, like my podcast is known for, and they talked a little bit about gender fluidity, gender equality, trans rights, and things like that. And I just I've always wanted to talk about it, but I was always kind of afraid to because I don't want to offend anyone, or get into a giant argument. And I know you don't really want to get into an argument with me. Nixon never really wanted to get into an argument. But I think, honestly, to make the podcast even more interesting to all walks of people, I think we need something that we both disagree on and have something to kind of argue or convince each other or something. So,
well, because just to give a preview that you and I have differing opinions on this.
yes,
so
we both have different opinions. We both had a conversation in the middle of the night last night, when we were trying to go to bed, and I kept saying we need to save this for the podcast. We can't just throw all our shit out here in bed because nobody's gonna hear.
We
it.
had a really good conversation last night, so hopefully
I was actually really
hopefully
impressed.
we can recreate that today.
I was really impressed with the flow and how I could talk about it. Where here on the podcast, I think a lot of times I stumble on my words or something like that.
Yeah.
So. We're gonna go ahead and hit this. If you, viewer, have any opinion on what we're talking about, or do you just want to let us know how you feel about it? If you want to call me a dick, whatever it is you want, obviously, just me saying that, you probably already know my stance on it. Go ahead and let us know here in the live chat. We'll definitely give you a response.
And just a heads up, there is a little bit of a delay. There's about a 10-second delay, so don't think we're ignoring you. If you post something in chat, it takes about 10 seconds before it's going to show up.
Yeah.
At most 10 seconds before it'll show up for us. So
usually when we're on Twitch, we usually go back and we say, hey, let's catch up on the chat. Thank you, Mr. Nevermind, for calling me a dick. Mr. Nevermind says, I think that's a great idea. Language is so much harder at our age. It's very harder. But I would also say that when I was in high school and I had the opportunity to learn it, I wasn't really paying attention.
Yeah.
And now that I'm kind of with the Duolingo app, which we're not sponsored yet again, it's a lot easier and it's a lot more fun for me.
It's the gamification, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what you're saying there, but sure.
Gamification is the process of turning something into a game, basically learning something through playing games.
I thought you were saying like gamification, like they were turning it in some kind of gamma ray and turning everyone into Hulks.
Like making a game out of something that's not necessarily a game.
Okay. Mr. Nevermind says, I hated the 7th grade Spanish. It was kind of a turnoff too with the teachers.
See, I absolutely loved Spanish. I went through 4 years of Spanish in high school.
I didn't like having a textbook and having to write it and then having the teacher speak to me completely in Spanish. And
I think the way that we teach language in general is not very good. The way we teach things in general with any subject is not the greatest.
Yeah, our education shit.
No.
Anyways.
Another podcast.
That's another episode.
But just to preface everything, we just want to say we understand that everybody's entitled to their own opinion. These are just our opinions. We respect everybody else's opinions regarding this subject.
And to clarify, we are only speaking of our opinions. We are not experts or
not at all.
Or people who experience this.
And I think that another thing to keep in mind before we get to talking about all of this is just to be respectful of each other and be respectful of the fact that these are people that are, they're real people.
Yeah, these are people's everyday life.
People with emotions and, yeah. So I just think we need to just say that, get it out in the open to start with. That.
Yeah. So. Gender fluidity. So kind of, I would say our generation or the generation after us have decided that gender is no longer just female and male. It isn't just two, it's now a spectrum of the combination of the
Not everybody has that belief, but there is a growing belief that gender is a spectrum, and there's a big debate currently, and each person's going to have a different opinion on whether gender is binary or non-binary. What I mean by that is there only male and female genders, or
Is that binary?
that is binary if you believe that there's only two genders.
Okay.
Non-binary means that you believe that there's more than two genders, or that there's not just two genders.
What I don't understand is because I'm binary. I believe that there's male and there's female. I don't understand how is it with the spectrum or whatever, is it a combination of the both? Is there other genders now that I don't know of?
So I think something to keep in mind is I think that a lot of the argument is, why do I need to define my gender? Why does it matter what my gender is to anybody?
I see the problem that I feel is that the generation after us, or whatever you want to say, who's to blame, they don't ever want like a definition, or they don't want like a tag, or like a fucking. I think it started back when we were all in school and we were all trying to decide whether we were goth or emo or punk rock or preppy, and then all of a sudden we established those. And when we got into those, then we were like, oh, I don't want to belong to this one thing, so I don't I don't belong to emos. I don't belong to goth. I like to dress like it. I like the music. I like the lore of it, but I'm not that. And so I think that kind of transovers as we grew up, and we're like, well, I don't want to be defined as just a male. I want to be defined as, a number of things in one. But I don't want to throw a title on it. I don't want a definition, like a fact on it, And I think that's where that comes from. I honestly, like, from a scientific point, if your chromosomes are X and Y, you're a male. I'm not just saying, like, if you have a penis, you're a male. I'm saying if you produce testosterone, if you produce the other male hormones, your chromosomes are X and Y, you have a penis, you have bigger and stronger muscles, you have bigger and stronger bones, you have facial hair, all that stuff. Some guys can't make facial hair, so I guess I can't throw that one in. But that right there, scientifically and medically, says you are a male. But I would also like to say that I don't believe that people who are born as male inside feel like they should be a female, and they want to be a female, and they go and they have the operations to become a female. I believe that if you go through the proper operations, even I'm totally fine with somebody like a male or a female saying I identify as a female or whatever, because I want to be a female, pre or post op. I'm totally fine with that. I don't like when we get into the muddy water of saying, well, there's a spectrum, and I think that there's a lot of murkiness when it comes to that.
So what I will say is, I think that in general, I would just like to start off by saying that kind of food for thought. Who is the one that established that there was a male and female gender in the first place? It would have been mankind,
yeah.
that would have determined that. Now, I understand that maybe at that time it was just based off of physical differences, such as, male or female genitalia and characteristics. But I think that not only has our medicine advanced, among other things, medicine's advanced, technology's advanced, our culture and our society has advanced, so why shouldn't we reevaluate some of these things that were set in stone so long ago? I think that, to me, it makes more sense to say that a gender is on more of a spectrum, and I think that just in general, we make the whole gender identity way too complicated. I think that each and every the large board in front of me. If you're talking about this is the laptop, Mister Nevermind.
Yeah,
The
that's
MacBook.
my MacBook. I put a bunch of stickers on it.
But I think that we make things way too difficult with either asking people to identify or forcing them to identify as a gender, especially if maybe they do believe that it's non-binary. Maybe they don't believe that there's just two genders. Who are we to force somebody to determine that? And yes, I definitely think that there are, if go binary for a second here, there's anatomical males and females that identify as the other gender, whether they have surgery or not. That's their own prerogative. That shouldn't be any of our concern. But I still think that you can choose to identify however you want.
Yeah.
And it's not like you get to choose what sort of, what you are or who you turned out to be. You just know how you feel deep down inside.
But see, like, okay, this is where I have a problem, is because, like you said before, who was who in the beginning defined that there was only two or whatever, and why should we stick to with what he says, and like where I'm at is, it was a human. They basically said, yeah, it's autonomically you're a male because you have a penis, and this is a female because you have a vagina, and those things too, those are it. And then medicine advanced, and we found out, okay, males have X and Y chromosomes, females have XX. Right? Am I right with that, or is it YY? I think it's XX.
You're right. It's XX.
And and then they came out and advanced even more, and they found out, okay, technically, everyone inside the womb and even after they're born is a female, because that's where everyone gets nipples. Right? Am I wrong with that?
Technically, when a fetus is formed, it's formed with both it's formed with genitalia that can form either way,
but
into an anatomical male or an anatomical female.
Right, but they were both born with both versions of the chromosome. And then after,
no, the DNA and the chromosomes are all predetermined when the egg is fertilized.
Okay, well, anyways, my point is that they kept advancing medicine. They kept finding out more and more things, but it kept becoming more defined as there is male and then there's female. I think the problem is that with your statement that who was the person who came up with that, and why should we believe them? Who are the people who are coming up with there's a spectrum and a fluidity to it? To me, I haven't seen anything scientifically or medically reliable to prove that there's a spectrum, and to prove where people are on points of the spectrum. I think a lot of it is psychological. I think a lot of it is people who think and feel like there's something they're not. And I'm not saying that there's a problem with people who think and feel like there's something they're not. I'm saying that you can think and feel that, but scientifically and factually, you are a male right now, or you are a female right now. And because you think and feel that way, you can now later, because technology and medicine and science has advanced so much, that you can go and become what you think and feel. And I have no problem with that. If you think and feel like you are a woman inside, or if you think and feel like you're a man inside, and you want that to come out, and you want it to be projected and be in fruition, that you are what you think and feel, by all means, go and do that. But I think the argument is that you are what you are when you start off, and you are what you become. There is no, I'm like 75% male, but I'm also like 20 female, and
so that's where I think that people make it too complicated, because it's not a matter of I'm this percentage male and this percentage female. That's not it. It's just saying that even though you may have the anatomical parts of a male, that you may identify some things as a male and other things you may identify as a female. It's not just black and white, one thing. It's not like I'm saying, yes, I truly feel like I've always meant to be a woman, but I was born as a man. It's not necessarily saying that. And I don't think it's a matter of, taking a dart and throwing it and landing somewhere on the spectrum. That's not what it is at all. It's by calling it like gender fluidity, like the name of our stream today, is that because it's fluid, it's not that I just decide something and I'm stuck there and that's how I am forever. It could be, as with anything and everything, when you grow up, you evolve yourself. Your opinions and thoughts about things change. Maybe your feelings about things change. And that could even be that maybe at this age I identify more as a female, but I have some things that identify as a male. But then maybe as I get older, I might change. It's fluid. It doesn't mean that I have to, because I was born a female, that I am definitely a female. I can never identify as anything else. I'm only a female from there on out. It's not a static thing. It's dynamic. It's fluid. It's changing constantly, just like everything else in the world around us.
Let me quickly go through the comments real quick. So Mr. Nevermind says, I think that's good.
You're way down there.
Language is much hard. Oh yeah, okay.
He was just talking
you don't
about,
want to be cubbyholed.
He has a cousin going through transition.
I have a cousin going through transition. Just got the photo of the breast reduction. Can you imagine feeling you're not who you are? Okay. So like I said before, the problem that I have with it is that if you want to say that there's a spectrum or whatever, that's fine, but I don't think scientifically and medically that there is a spectrum. I think for psychological reasons there's a spectrum. And the problem that we run into is people can turn around and say, I identify as this, or I feel and think like this, and now because I think and identify like that, even though I have male parts, I still want to use the women's bathroom. I still want to use the women's changing room. I want to, I want to play women's sports, and that's fine. I guess, like I said before, it's fine if you think and feel like you're a man, like you're a male who thinks and feel like you're a woman. But then we get into this whole murkiness of whose bathroom are we using, or whose changing rooms are we using, or whose team am I on?
Can I stop you for a second? Why does it matter? Why are we so obsessed, and why are we so terrified of anybody that is slightly different than ourselves? I have no idea why it matters what bathroom anybody uses at all.
So you think all bathrooms should just be unisex?
Why not?
I mean, I guess that's an approach, and we can give it a try. I guess I'm willing for trying that. But I mean, there's a lot of people out there who are afraid that a big male is coming into a female's bathroom.
Okay, and I think another thing I think we need to get across is that not all males are big and strong with huge muscles and hairy, and not all women are tiny little things with big boobs and whatever. We've got a lot of gender stereotypes that exist in our society that say that men have to be the big and strong ones, women have to be these small, weak ones that are just pretty looking.
I get that, but it's been said a lot on Joe Rogan's Experience, and I'm not saying that this is a totally great source, but he's had people, and he himself has said that males physically are bigger and stronger than women. And he's brought up several cases where say a male tennis player isn't doing so hot in the men's brackets of tennis, and he wants to up his stats, he just turns around and identifies as a female, or he goes and gets an operation and becomes a female, and then he starts competing with the females. And there's been two or three of them who've done that, and they've dominated the women's bracket of tennis. And there's actual female women who are now in protest and outrage that men have been doing this and going over and doing it. There's MMA fighters who are big and strong, who train to be big and strong, decide to go and dominate the women's bracket of MMA fighting, and they go and they beat the living shit out of these women. And it's because they have bigger, stronger muscles. Our men's bones are more denser and heavier, and we have a little bit more better with endurance.
For a second, I just want to remind you about our camera.
Yeah.
To adjust it so that we don't.
Okay.
They don't lose our beautiful faces. But I think we'll touch on chat here in just a second. But I think that one, I don't think it should matter what bathroom you go to. As far as the sports are concerned, my first point I would like to mention is, I don't know about you, but anybody that I have heard of that has decided to transition or has identified as a different gender than what they were born as, that it's a lot of pressure and stress and emotional, psychological hell that they go through. Mm-hmm. Not to mention if and when they do decide to come out and tell people that they identify differently, the torture that they go through, the hell that they go through, I do not see anybody willingly putting themselves through that if they're not actually. Yes, there's going to be bad people that do things for the wrong reasons out there, but it's very rarely. I think that in general, anybody that's willing to go out there and say, I identify as something else, I don't think that they would choose to put themselves through that trauma or pain, or I don't want to call it trauma because it's not necessarily a bad thing. Just, I understand that there's a lot of people that like to hate on people like that are.
I'm just pointing out people
different,
who are taking advantage of the trend of coming out and saying, I identify as this, and now I can go and reap the rewards of doing this. I can work the system in doing this. I will admit that the majority of people who do it aren't doing it to be malicious, but there are people, especially, big time athletes, who are trying to keep their stats or trying to keep their wins, and they're not doing so hot. And then they come up with this great fucking maybe cocaine fueled idea that we should identify as a woman and go dominate the women's brackets. I totally get people who think and feel and try to identify as another gender are going through a psychological hell because they feel like there's something they're not, and they hate how people see how they are, and they hate how they see themselves. I totally get that, and I totally get wanting to go through a transition. I have no problem, like I said before, with transgenders or even people who turn around and identify as something they're not. The problem that I have is that we are trying to go against. It feels like we're just trying to go against science and medicine because we all just don't want to offend everyone.
Well, and I think, so to touch on that, as far as getting offended, who is it that's really getting offended here? Is it people that are so stuck in their ways that they can't understand that there are people that don't feel or think the same way that they do?
I think it's just hard for people to stand by and let other people redefine logic so that way they can feel better about what they're going through. It's just like when you have somebody who identifies as a woman, and so they will sit there and correct you and say, "I'm not a man, I'm a woman. It's not sir, it's ma'am. Call me this because I'm not that, even though visually and physically I am that." And I'm like I said before, I don't have a problem with you identifying as a different gender, and if you wish for me to call you that, I'm totally on board. If you want me to call you sir, because you're, as an example, say you're a female who wants to be a male, you want me to call you sir, as long as you say, I identify as a woman, can you please call me a sir? Totally fine with that. I'm totally on board with doing that. But when we go around and start redefining logic and science and medicine, just so we can feel better about it and change things because a group of people want to do that, I think it's asinine.
I completely think that revisiting logic, science, medicine, any of that is warranted when you're having so many people that are increasingly disagreeing with that logic, science, and medicine that's out there.
But is it people are increasingly disagreeing because there's actual medical and science proof that that's wrong and that there really is a spectrum? Or is it everyone jumping on the bandwagon so we don't offend everyone?
Okay, I'm going to answer your question with a question.
Okay.
So...
Hold on, let me readjust the camera. We don't need anything embarrassing happening on our important discussion here. Alright, what's your question?
Well, now it's just left. So...
Alright, well, let me catch up with the chat real quick.
Excuse me. It was,
Okay, it's right here. Why does it matter? Evening, James.
I don't know if you still want us to call you Zombie.
Zombiefoot J. I changed the the command, the musty command. So it says Zombiefoot J now. I think you changed the Zombiefoot Gaming to J. Let me know if I did that wrong. James joined in, says there's a trans woman who started fighting women without telling anyone. Absolutely smashing everyone they came up against. There was a genetics professor who explained that even with the HRT, because they went through puberty, the bone density and skeleton makeup put them an almost unbeatable advantage. Mr. Number 9 says, I don't think they're trying to cheat. James says, as far as for the bathrooms here in Europe, we have had an open bathroom for as long as time. They're trying to be real. Mr. Nevermind says, James says, agrees with Mr. Nevermind. James also says, they aren't, and if someone identifies as a woman and a person they're competing against knows all the facts and fine with it, then cool. Competing, my fat fingers on the final one. James, where are you at? I thought London. Still a hard time with Caitlyn Jenner name. You got my actual personal account rather than Musty. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. We can change it. We can change it to whatever you want us to do. So yeah, like Musty said, when you go through puberty as a male, your bone density changes and becomes stronger.
I remember my question now.
What's your question?
Why are we so concerned? Why is it that the concern is coming up when it's men who identify as women and are competing in women's brackets?
Yeah.
But we don't have the same concern for women that identify as males and want to compete in a male bracket.
I'm concerned about it because previously stated the male skeleton structure is more dense and harder than women's, and they have stronger muscles.
Does
But when a
bone
woman,
density change your athleticism? Does it
no, but
affect how you train?
in an
Does
MMA,
it
in an MMA, in an MMA, when Eminem is rapping now, in an
an
MMA
anemone?
fighting circuit, and any kind of fighting, boxing, kickboxing, whatever, when you have more density packed inside, wrapped with bigger muscles, you're gonna hit harder, you're gonna impact harder, and when you
But
have a male who identifies as a female beating on a female whose skeleton isn't as dense and muscles aren't as dense or whatever, the actual biological female is going to take the more of a beating and is going to get worn down more. Vice versa, a female trying to be a male and trying to fight against biological males, it's going to be a disadvantage for her.
so
Now, by
are
all
we
means,
saying that it's okay for the woman to be at a disadvantage, but not for the men to have an advantage?
I'm not
over a
saying
woman?
it's okay, and I kind of agree with Mr. Nevermind and James here. Is if the other opponent knows and agrees to the fight, then by all means, I guess it's fine. You agreed to it. But there are fighters out there who are going and transitioning and becoming a new person with a new name, a new identity, and going and refighting as a new fighter, and the actual biological women who are fighters don't know what they previously were. Just like in tennis, where some of the men's do transition or identify as something else, and they don't release that I used to be a male, and then they're running around and going faster and harder because they have the bigger muscles and the bigger endurance. As long as the other opponent knows, then I guess I don't really find anything
Why?
matter with it. But
Okay, two more things. One, why should somebody have to disclose that? That would be like saying you have to disclose to anybody and maybe they do, but you have to disclose to somebody that you have HIV or AIDS before you fight them. Like, why? Why does it?
I think you do have to.
Okay, that's
I think
probably a
you
bad
have to.
example, but you know what I mean? Like, okay, tell me what religion you are before you go fight.
I think.
Who cares?
I think when you're competing in a sport, though, I think you do have to. I think you have. I think it either has to be put as your history. Okay, sorry.
I had two things that I wanted to say.
Go
the
ahead.
Second thing that I wanted to say was related to why are we assuming that no matter how hard a woman trains, that she's never going to be as strong or stronger than a man, and outweigh those differences in bone density or muscle density or whatever. Why is that assumption being made?
I believe that there's female athletes who can be fast and strong, probably even be on par with men, but those women have to work harder to be there. I'm not saying it doesn't exist.
On par or above?
On par or above, but I'm not saying it doesn't exist. What I'm saying is that for the majority of women who are fighting against women, they are where they're naturally at, or where they need to be to compete with women. And when you have a woman who's primed to compete against other women and she gets an opponent who is naturally stronger and bigger, it's not right. That's not to say, like I said before, that there aren't women who work harder or who are on par or above women or men.
So, as currently, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you and I both identify as the genders we were born as.
Correct.
So, is there any outcry from, say if this has allegedly happened, where a male just feigns that they are identifying as a female so they can compete in a female bracket, then is there any females from this bracket that are crying out saying this isn't fair? Or is this just outside people looking in that think that it's not fair to these poor little women?
I haven't heard I'm sure there is. I haven't heard on the MMA side, other
Mm-hmm.
than that people who follow that athlete closely and goes, hey, that used to be, Chris Cyborg, or hey, that used to be, Icebox fucking Johnson or whatever, and now he's fucking Cynthia or something. But I have heard that there is a female biological female tennis player who is actually protesting it because she thinks that it's unfair. There, and honestly, really, it is when these guys are going up and changing their identity or their gender, and then going and competing and dominating the women's bracket and winning championships over natural born women. It's, I mean, let me catch up with chat while you look that up. Let's see, where did I leave? Oh yeah, must see. No, don't, because damage given. It changes your ability to absorb damage. Like I said, if the other fighter is fine with it, then it's cool. Same can be said for the people who use steroids a long time. After hormone therapy, look up fighter called Chris Cyborg. Um, Christianity can't kick you in the head harder because it's literally impossible. Women MMA is absolutely amazing, but the moment you change the opponent's genetic structure, you are at a disadvantage, a distinct disadvantage. Some women are built like men, even though they are women. That is true, like I said, but it's not rare, but it's not a majority. The fighters themselves actually were outraged. They're on the outside, but the way bone develops is different. It's just a fact of genetics. Estrogen and testosterone just work that way. Yeah. So, um, there. Did you find any of the stories of the MMA fighters?
No, I'm currently because I'm still not convinced that there's not a. Yes, maybe a woman would have to work harder to physically develop enough muscle mass to outperform or equal a male, but I still think that it's possible for them, regardless of bone density, regardless of muscles, all of that. I don't think it's fair to sit and say that, oh, a woman could never be stronger than a man.
But
Or a
I'm not.
woman's at a disadvantage because she's facing a man. You
I'm.
don't know what that woman.
But I'm not saying that they can never be a man, and I'm not saying that they can't completely be at a disadvantage. What I'm saying is, it's like, I don't. I guess I can't really think of a good way to explain it other than, let's say you're an MMA fighter and you fight in like the heavyweight division of women's MMA fighting, and your new opponent comes in, Rogina. She's slightly broader, slightly bigger, um, and you compete against her, and she hits a little bit harder than you used to, and she's a little bit harder to take down than you used to, and you've trained. A lot of those fighters train year round, and they train and train and train, and say you trained your little heart out, and you trained enough to get the championship for that fight. You trained enough that if you felt confident that you were going to win the fight and you were going to get the championship. You go and you fight Regina, and Regina is harder. She hits you harder. She's a little bit heavier. She's a little bit faster too. But that's not going to intimidate you. So you're going to continue the fight. You're going to fight your little heart out, and you lose against Regina. And you're like, obviously you trained harder than me. You deserved it. Whatever. And then a little bit time passes and you hear Regina used to be a man. Regina used to be a heavyweight championship in the male bracket and has won several championships. Regina used to be Carl, and Carl's stats were starting to drop a little bit. So he then decided to turn into a woman and dominate the women's bracket, and it happened to be against you. How would that make you feel?
Either way, regardless, I feel like they're just the better opponent in that case. Maybe I'll get them next time. There's a lot of different circumstances. There's a lot of different reasons why I may have lost, but I don't think that the sole reason of that he used to be a man and has now transitioned to a woman as a deciding factor. I think of it as, oh yeah, I probably could have gotten up a little faster here. Oh yeah, I probably could have went for the knee, something,
and
whatever.
Probably most athletes will probably think that way. They'll probably go, I could have done better here. I was
think
stupid.
It's, honestly, I think it's just the sore losers that are going out there and saying, oh, I should have won that, I should have had it, and then, oh, that's not fair, and now I'm crying out because that's not fair that it used to be a man, and I'm going to grasp onto anything and everything I can that does not assign blame to myself and go after them for it. I want to take away their championship, take away all of their hard work, blood, sweat, and tears. Wait a second. Take all of their blood, sweat, and tears and hard work out of the equation and say just because they're a man or were a man,
what if you heard that
they couldn't have beat you, and that takes away all of their accomplishment and therefore should strip their title they might have earned or whatever.
What if you heard that they got the operation, they went through the heel time, but they didn't train for the fight. They just went right into it and they won easily.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you tell me. I don't care.
What about, let's say, okay, let me put it in a different perspective, or let me put it in a different analogy or whatever you want to call it. Let's say you're in a street race, right? And you're racing against somebody who has an identical car as you. And they're both stock, meaning there's no modifications or anything that didn't come out of the factory. And you guys are saying it's stock, no NOS, no sandbagging. We're gonna do this race. It's a drag race, right? And the Christmas tree.
That I know what all
the Christmas tree turns green, which means that you needed to go, right? And you stomp on the throttle. Both cars lift up. As soon as both cars come down, though, you're driving. All of a sudden, the one pulls away from you, and it's now down the quarter mile. And so you lost. And you come back to the winner's bracket or circle, wherever it is for drag racing, and you find out, oh, he lied. He used NOS. Would you go, oh, man, dude, you totally trained harder than me. Oh, man, you definitely outthought me on this one.
No, that's totally different, though. You're comparing apples and oranges here.
No,
the person going into this didn't lie about anything.
The person didn't reveal that they used to be a man.
But that's not lying. They're not obligated to tell them.
That's holding information, though.
I disagree. Completely disagree with that.
You completely disagree with that?
Yes, I do. The case that you gave, they lied about using a booster, a supplement to help them.
Yeah.
They're not lying about anything.
In this case, the trans fighter didn't say that they used to be a male.
So ask me this: going into a fight, do I have to tell somebody what my sexual orientation is?
No, you don't need to tell them your sexual orientation.
But I'm withholding information, so by that logic,
that doesn't affect the fight at all. It doesn't affect the fight at all.
Technically, it doesn't affect the fight at all if I have a different gender.
How does one fighter being gay give him more advantage of winning the fight?
How does what? I'm sorry.
How does a fighter releasing information that he or she were gay or lesbian, how does that give them more advantage in the fight? I think if there's advantages to be made, it should be made.
If they've transitioned, whether they've done hormone therapy or not.
It's just the same case as a fighter using steroids.
But that's
Other
again,
fighters,
that's
they don't.
not.
Fighters don't tell other fighters that they don't have that they use steroids during the training or
But
before the
again,
fight.
you're comparing something that is against the rules. It's not against the rules to be a different gender.
Well, I don't know what the rules are, so I can't argue that. But
I also find it hilarious that we're only comparing this to MMA or boxing or kickboxing and fighting. Why is the conversation not coming up with soccer, basketball, baseball, softball, swimming,
tennis? We talked about tennis. These
track.
are the only cases that I'm aware of right now. I'm sure that there are plenty of them, or they're going to be them.
So what you're saying is that just not enough people have cried out for attention because they want to cause problems.
I don't think enough people have gotten caught. I don't think enough people either haven't tried in other forms of sports or they haven't got caught.
I think what it comes down to is the gender stereotype that women are weaker than males. That's what I think it comes down to.
Like I said before, women can train harder and become on par or better than men, and they're even, like Mr. Nevermind pointed out, there are women who are just naturally better than men. Just like how there's men who are naturally fucking scrawny little pieces of shit, but you don't see them fighting in MMA. You don't see them competing in a high intensity impact sport. What I'm saying is,
but you do.
What?
You do. They are in sports.
Okay, but they're in like lightweight or they're in playing polo.
So are you saying that a scrawny male can't pack a punch as hard as a big strong man?
A big strapping lad?
I mean, why?
If you
it's all about the fucking about the physics of it.
Let's put a lightweight mixed martial arts fighter.
Why do we always go to MMA? I know the least amount of information about MMA.
I don't know that much about MMA either, but I'm just saying. Let's put somebody who's in a lightweight bracket against the heavyweight. Like wrestling, even though WWE is fake. So put somebody who's smaller against like some big jacked guy who can lift people and throw them out of the fucking ring. Do you think that's going to be a fair fight?
Could be.
It could be he could be a scrapper. He could probably win.
Just because you have a difference in size does not necessarily mean that you can't pull out a win. He
could be a scrapper, and he could probably win. But the simple fact is he knows he's a lightweight, and he knows that he's going against a heavyweight, and they both agreed to it.
And you don't think that MMA fighters or whoever know ahead of time who they're facing? Because I don't know about you.
They have a whole campaign about who they're facing. Okay, so then
they're aware of whatever, and you don't think that if somebody...
They have
okay, so if somebody was a celebrity in whatever sports world that they're in...
Okay, Tony Romo.
You don't think that there would be any publicity either that says already that people know anywhere they go that they were a man that transitioned to a woman? You don't think that would be something the press would cover? The press would be all over that.
Yeah.
They would blow that shit up. So don't you for 1 second tell me that somebody didn't know that somebody else used to be a man, and don't tell me that it makes a difference.
They changed their identity and they came in as a new fighter. They didn't release the information then say, hey, by the way, guys,
it's not like
I'm having an operation to become a female so I can compete in the female brackets.
But it's not like the stereotypical thing like, oh, I was John Smith and now I'm like Karma Fox. Like, it's not like some weird thing like that. Okay, not the weird's a bad word.
If you're in the public eye, you are an athlete, a famous athlete, and you plan on doing this, you need to release it. You need to say, hey, I'm going into something that's probably going to be an advantage for me.
Next, you're going to tell me that my blood type makes a difference. You're going to tell me something else in my DNA because I have a defect in my DNA somewhere that says that I'm going to develop cancer early. Maybe I had a cancer cell in my body at that time of the fight. That's why I lost. Why?
No, I'm not saying that.
Well, but that's what I'm saying is we're opening this up to so many bullshit excuses. I think you're just like
opening the gouge a little bit too much. I'm saying if it's something that's going to give you an advantage, you took steroids. You need to say you took steroids. There's rules against steroids. You know, you become a female. You need to say, I became a female, now I wish to compete in the female bracket.
Let's talk about, so moving on from the sports part, because I don't think we're going to come to an agreement on that. Okay. Agree to disagree on that. But I think we also need to talk about the stereotypes in our culture, in our society, as far as somebody that does come out and say, I don't care about sports, but if somebody comes out and says, so like for example, Mr. Nevermind said before with the Caitlyn Jenner situation, the transition when at the time Bruce Jenner had came out and said that he wanted to transition to a woman and said his new name would be Caitlyn and it'd be Caitlyn Jenner.
Yeah.
Do you remember the backlash in the media? Do you remember the name calling that was happening? Do you remember all of the horrible things that people were saying? And I get that there's, with anything and everything that happens, whether it's a celebrity, whether it's politics, you know, big orange, whatever.
That's annoying orange.
Annoying orange. But regardless, I get that there's going to be some media coverage. I get that they draw attention or attract viewers or interaction by creating an outrageous headline or a headline that's going to draw people in. I get that. I will identify that as an issue with our media.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's right that our media does that. But there was a lot of things saying like, well, okay, so transitioning to Caitlyn, does that mean that, are you going to have surgery? Are you going to not? Are you going to do hormone replacement? Are you not? Does that mean you're going to like sell all of your clothes that you have and go out and buy dresses now? You're going to wear dresses all the time and heels and you're going to start wearing makeup. Like, there was all of these unnecessary questions that anybody else doesn't have to face these questions.
No.
Like, anybody that identifies as the gender they were born as, they don't face these questions.
No.
Why is it that we're attacking these people that are going through a difficult time already? Like Mr. Nevermind said previously, maybe they've gone their entire life. Like in the case of Caitlyn Jenner, where she had spent her, she had to be at least 50 years old.
I think she was like 60.
Like 50 plus years of her life that she was living as a male, but the whole time felt like she should be a female.
Yeah.
And finally came out and could be what she felt like was herself after all of these years, just to be attacked and brutalized by the media.
I think
sorry, I forgot what you said we could call you, but Jay, if that's okay.
James.
Said because people cannot identify with it and are scared. And I think that's a lot of it is with our society.
Yeah.
Is it's all scare, like fear mongering.
Yeah,
and
people
scared.
are scared of the unknown. And
yeah.
A lot of people are jealous of someone who could be free enough to do it. And a lot of people at the time kind of thought it was like a stunt to get attention because there was the Kardashian show and the divorce and, you know, just their history alone from the family, and just kind of felt like a lot of people felt like he was kind of slowly fading away from the family and the shows and everything. And a lot of people thought it was just kind of another stunt to say, hey, I'm still current, or I'm still here, you know, notice me. But honest, I don't feel that way about Kylie Jenner. Caitlyn Jenner, Caitlyn, because I didn't really give too much care into it.
Mhm.
I wasn't angry or curious or anything. I was more just like, good for you. You got what you wanted. Now you can feel and be how you feel on the inside. Um, I will say the media is a lot of the media, a lot of the paparazzis, especially here in America and in Hollywood in general.
So you're gonna say Nebraska, and I'm like, what paparazzi is in Nebraska?
No, well, I'm just saying that because we have James who's from London, but like I said, here in America and especially in Hollywood, they're all a bunch of dickbags who just happen to have a couple $100s to get a camera, and then the tabloids like to print a lot of bullshit. I will say they like to play both sides. I remember a lot of the good sides coming out, like people saying "good for her," do it.
They're very
feel the way you want to
fickle.
feel.
They're gonna go back and forth depending on what.
A lot of them know that there isn't just the one side, so they're gonna appeal to both sides. But I was. I wouldn't say I wasn't happy for Caitlyn. Like I said, just didn't really give two cares to it because it was just another celebrity. On the fact that she transitioned into a woman. I was happy for that she got to do that. Just the simple fact that I wasn't into Kardashians. I wasn't into reality TV, and I wasn't into the whole thing. So, but on the like I said, like the whole part where she got to transition to what she wanted to be, I was happy for her.
Well, I think
I don't have a problem with people transitioning. I don't have a problem with people thinking and feeling like they're something they're not. The only thing I want to say is though it's not a chemical imbalance, it's not a medical imbalance,
no.
It's not a physical imbalance. It's purely psychological. That being said, if you want to tweak your physical form into aligning with your psychological and thoughts and your feelings, I'm all for it. I'm all for it, and I'm all for whatever you identify. And if you correct me and tell me what you want to be called or how you want me to address you, I'm totally fine with doing that for you. I just don't get the spectrum.
And I think that a lot of people watching and listening would also understand your point on that, because I think that a lot of people in general don't understand the spectrum. I'm not going to sit here and say that I 100% understand all of it, but I'm at the point that I I don't care. I'm all for you doing what you feel is best, and I'm all for you doing what you love and being who you love, and nobody should ever have to suffer and be someone or something that they're not, regardless of what that situation is. I think that Jay had mentioned something else as well, is something that I did want to touch on a little bit too, is also a matter of sexual identity. Like, gender identity is one thing, but sexual identity is different as well. Your sexual orientation. And I think that that's something that's important to mention as well, is especially when somebody does choose to transition, that doesn't necessarily mean that their sexual orientation is changing either. That may be completely obvious to most of you, but maybe there's some people that's kind of an eye opener. I don't know. But
I'm
so they're not only going through the struggle of transitioning, but
they're also finding their sexual orientation.
Well, if it's a male,
they're trying to find themselves.
Yes, but if it's a male that identifies as a female, but maybe they're still sexually attracted to females.
So they want to transition into a woman and become a lesbian.
Correct.
Yeah.
But that also, our society as a whole has became more accepting, but we're still not where we need to be,
Yeah.
acceptance wise, as far as sexual orientation too. I mean, we still have situations where like gay couples are not able to adopt children or foster children.
Yeah.
Like, why does it matter? It doesn't affect their parenting abilities whatsoever.
Yeah.
But I think that's just an important thing is
No,
not only are they struggling with the transition, but maybe before they were considered as straight, which is, socially acceptable, whereas now they're transitioning, which is one unacceptable thing, but then two, they're going to now say that they're a lesbian because they identify as a female and they want to transition as a female and they're attracted to females. And that's another thing that I think a lot of people find unacceptable. It's because of the stereotype of it. For some reason, lesbians are more acceptable than gay men, I think, in general, because a lot of men have fantasies about lesbians and stuff, and women too, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I think a lot of the opinions are male driven. Like you said, like the lesbians are more acceptable because men like watching lesbians, fuck on porn, and I think a little bit of it has a little bit of like religion into it too, because I think even though Christianity frowns upon being gay and lesbians too, but they don't really frown that much on lesbians that much. It's mostly the gays.
I don't think it's I think when it comes to religion, I don't think that they accept any of them. I mean,
you hear nowadays a lot of like gay people and lesbians are being more accepted into church and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's not like it's not vast or anything. It's kind of like a rarity, but you start to hear it.
Well, and technically speaking, if you want to go with the stereotypical Christian way, mm-hmm. is everyone is God's child. Everyone is welcome, regardless mm-hmm. of anything, any of your situations. You're all welcome. You're all his children.
There's a lot of contradictions with religion, and we can get into that with a whole nother
some
podcast.
Other time. Yeah.
But I just want to say, me myself, even though I sound like a complete and total dickbag about the whole men transgendering into females and competing in sports, I want to say, like I said probably 1,000 times already, I have no problem with you doing that.
I don't think there's any question.
I'm a humanitarian.
What are you looking at?
There's like a hair floating by my head.
Okay, you were freaking me out there. I thought there was something walking behind us.
Fucking ghost. No, I'd like to call myself a humanitarian. I guess it's really up to what you guys think.
Sorry. Jay's comment.
Being gay isn't a sin. It's sticking stuff in the butt that angers the Lord. Wow. Anyways, I like to consider myself a humanitarian. I absolutely believe that love is love. Like, you can be gay, you can be lesbian, you can bi, you can be whatever.
There's
is in
asexual
the
too.
Asexual. I just want you to be happy, and if that means that you want to be, not even you want to be, it's just if you are gay, then you are gay, and I have no problem with that. If you want to be another gender, or you want to identify with that, I'm totally happy for you. Go do it. If it makes you happy, that will make me happy. Mm-hmm. I think people should be able to adopt children no matter what sexual orientation or gender you are. I think that people should be able to get married no matter what sexual orientation you are. I think that people should be able to buy a house in any neighborhood they want as long as they have the money to do so. I love humans, and I think that humans should be happy, and I think we should quit wasting our energy and time and hating on specific groups and of humans.
And I agree 100%. I think that's a good
But I also think we should be fair.
I think it's a good stopping point for us, honestly, because I think ultimately that's all that anybody could ever want. And I just wish that our our society as a whole, that we could just be happy for one another and quit tearing each other down, quit pointing things out or looking for reasons to be upset at somebody or to hate them for something that they believe in or think or how they look or feel or whatever. In my opinion, I am extremely liberal. I am very much the type of person that says, you, like you said, do what makes you happy. You it's your life. You are the only person that can decide how you want to live your life, and you're the only person that can decide when you're truly happy. So I think that everybody should be free to do what they want to make themselves happy. And just love each other.
Yeah.
I know that sounds so cheesy and warm and fuzzy but
Yeah.
honestly, I think that's what all of us need right now. Let's bring each other up, build each other up. Why do we have to tear each other down all the time?
Yeah. I believe that if you want to do something that's going to make you happy and isn't going to affect anyone else negatively, by all means, do it. I'm all for you. I'm in your corner. I am not for people being racist or sexist or, homophobic or people who shit on people who identify or are trans into other genders and stuff. What?
Just though your language skills are so beautiful. I'm just your language.
Hey, I am me.
Is blossoming before
if
me.
If you can't handle me down here, you don't deserve me up here.
Oh, I'll handle you down there.
Anyways, is there anything worth catching up here in the chat?
It's a lot of just echoing kind of what we've been saying a lot, and just a few added points. So
yes, do whatever you want, but cause no harm to any other living being. Yes.
No intentional harm.
No intentional harm. And I even, I don't know why I did that, but anyways, I just, like I said, I'm a humanitarian. I just think that we should all be fair. I think we shouldn't take advantage of broken systems. And I don't think we should cause any harm or.
Can't we just all get along?
Yeah, can we just all exist with each other?
I bet I know what would solve our problems. all of the world problems, world hunger, maybe even.
What?
Let's just all sit down and just have once a day. We need 15 minutes to have a group hug.
We all just hug each other.
Just to hug each other.
Yeah, we should.
And I think words of honestly, encouragement. Oh, your hair looks very luscious today.
I think we should all.
But it does.
No matter what you are or what you identify as, you should try it. Try somebody else's view. Try somebody else's shoes on for a day, for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Just try it. It doesn't make you happy, that's fine. But if it makes the other person happy, you should be happy that they're happy.
I think that as any human being has a responsibility to do that, to put themselves in somebody else's shoes, to gain that different perspective, and I would say the same amount of responsibility as what they have to pursue what makes them happy.
And I just want to make another little comment, and then I love how we're talking about weed in the chat. A lot of great.
We've got sinners in the chat. They're talking about sins in the chat.
A lot of creative, artistic artists, musicians, actors. A lot of them were gay. A lot of them identified as something else. And I think a lot of it is because even though there was a lot of repression, they still said, this is what I am and I'm happy to be it. And I think if we just take away repression and putting our thumbs down on everyone who is different from what we are, I think we're gonna have a more beautiful world, a more creative, artistic, beautiful listening world. You know, that's just how I feel.
I think that any of you that are watching or listening out there, just maybe take a moment, just a minute, and just take like 30 seconds of that to think of something that makes you happy, and the other 30 seconds to think of the first step towards making yourself happy. I think I think we should use our platform a little bit for something good, and I think that would be something that we could do. So
if your step, if you're somebody who's in the closet or whatever, and you just want to be out, I'm
talking baby steps here.
I know. I'm just saying. You need to let the world know who you are, because then from there, then you can flourish. As soon as you tell your parents, as soon as you tell the world or whatever, and you don't have to take my advice. You can stay in the closet too if you feel more comfortable there. But I'm just saying, I think your world's gonna be a lot more happier and a lot more brighter if you just say, "This is who I am, and this is what makes me happy." And I don't care how you feel, but I do hope that you're happy for me. That being said, thank you, James, Mr. Nevermind, for coming to our very first YouTube stream.
And thanks for anybody that's listening, maybe not live, listening out to the recording. Wow. Or watching on. We will be re-uploading this to YouTube and Twitch. And then, so in the chat here in just a moment, we'll be posting all of the different platforms that we are available on.
Closets can be very comfy.
We also have different social media pages as well.
Yes.
As far as our platforms where you can either watch or listen, those platforms are going to be here on YouTube. We do live stream every Thursday at 6 p.m. and then within
Central Standard Time.
And then within 24 to 48 hours, we will re-upload to and post the episode to YouTube, to Twitch, and then we also will have SoundCloud, then Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn. You can also follow us on our social media pages. We are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We also have a Discord available if you'd like to maybe you want to come in and guest on the show sometime.
Yes. I've been trying. I know.
Suggest a topic to talk about.
I'm very terrible at getting on the Discord and checking it out. There was somebody on there who was talking, and I also even got to see that James was on there. He asked if we were going to be on YouTube today, last night. I'm going to try hard to keep on Discord so I can get your guys' suggestions, or even if you guys want to sorry, my cat is acting weird.
Like having a sneezing attack.
But if you guys want to guest on the show, let me know there on Discord. Otherwise, I mentioned on my personal Twitter that I'm going to try to be a little bit more active on there, as well as on the podcast Twitter. Otherwise, you can find all of our platforms and social medias here in the chat. Instagram, I think we're going to cut back on putting pictures of us being live, because that's kind of dominating it. And so we're just going to put natural, like real pictures of us and shit. So
the real schmackshy pictures.
Yeah, the sexy pictures.
Don't forget to check out our merch store. I just dropped the link in our chat, but for those of you that are listening or watching on the replay, it is teespring.com/stores/the NVM podcast.
And we might even be switching to a different merch store, because
there's a chance.
We found one that has a little bit more items.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm not too in love with that one yet.
I really like the tie-dye shirt in there, even though I couldn't get it in my size. Just a little shout out to James or Musty or Zombiefoot Gaming or Zombiefoot J. All of those people are one person. we will be sending out your package very soon. I know I said last time that we did, but I was trying to get ahead of the ball and I failed at that. But we will be sending it very soon. It's starting to become spring. I think we got our last snowstorm. So I think
Nope. We got more snow on this weekend. But
ruin my.
It should be. It's supposed to be mostly freezing rain, and then it'll end in snow. But it shouldn't be that much snow. And then next week we're looking at 40s and 50s, which sounds like heaven right now.
I'm gonna play Beach Boys all week.
I break out the shorts and the daisy or the flip flops and the Daisy Dukes
USA.
and the yeah. Not quite that time yet for that, but
no, I'm just gonna get.
Oh, hey, and just a reminder, if you guys don't know yet, daylight savings time is this weekend.
Oh yes.
So it is
except for Arizona.
Except for Arizona, I'm sure there's other places too.
That's just what my Real Appeal teacher said for like 20 minutes. Was if you lived in Arizona, it doesn't affect you.
So don't forget to spring forward an hour. You're gonna lose a little bit of sleep, so maybe try to go to bed a little early.
Does it affect Musty? I probably sound like a dumbass, but does that affect you, Musty? Daylight savings time?
Pretty sure it affects everybody, but.
Well, it doesn't affect Arizona, so I mean, you don't know.
Well, but that's because they chose not to adjust for it.
See, why can't we all do that? Why can't we all just say fuck your spring forward?
That is another podcast. We can talk about the conspiracy that is daylight savings time.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for everyone for showing up here at the live on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone who is currently listening to us through one of our platforms, Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, TuneIn, or Stitcher. Don't forget to check out the fan page on Facebook, and we have the Twitter and Instagram. We love you all. Have a beautiful night.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
But for today, we're talking about Mars. We're talking about Mars. And he's like, ah! I shouldn't do that. I could have gone more, but I'm just gonna have to end it there.
That's pretty good. I'm just going to say something that might piss off a lot of people.
Yeah.
I feel like the pork tastes just like the chicken.